In order to facilitate home learning during the first part of the pandemic, we decided to use Google Drive. Initially, our children didn't have logins to very many sites. It was something that we were planning to work on and planning to develop, but they weren't ready to go right at the beginning. So the quickest way for us to be able to get work to pupils was through a combination of using Google Drive and setting those drives up so that anybody who had the link could access them, so that we knew that that wasn't a barrier. And we then followed that up because we wanted more communication with parents, with creating a communication sheet that sat within Google Drive, so that children and parents could write on there. It was a very simple spreadsheet, and the children or parents could write their queries on, and the teachers could respond to them. And then from there, we then moved to creating home learning email addresses so that the children could send their work in, because what we found was that they weren't particularly motivated if they weren't getting any feedback from teachers. It worked, and we know from the number of hits that we were getting on the links that the children were using them, and also from the amount of work that was being returned to the home learning websites, to the home learning email addresses, sorry. We know that children were accessing the resources, but it wasn't an ideal situation because we couldn't see sort of individual children and whether there were children who were accessing resources who maybe weren't sending work back, but were in fact accessing the resources. So we knew we had to develop things further. We also made use of a lot of the websites and links that were available to us. So at the beginning, when sort of things like Classroom Secrets became free, and Hamilton and things like that, Hamilton Trust had free resources, we were using a lot of those resources. But actually, again, quite quickly, we realised that we still needed to tailor them to meet the needs of our children. So we sort of used those for the first 2 weeks, and then very quickly tweaked and adapted so that what they were getting, even though they were working remotely, was very similar to what they would have been getting at school. So over the course of this term, our plans for remote and blended learning have evolved. And what we realised was that we wanted an easier way for teachers and children and parents to be able to interact with each other. So we got all of the children's logins set up, and we now use Google Classroom. One of the first things we did was send out a scavenger hunt that helped the parents. I mean, it was more for the parents than the children, to be honest, find their way around Google Classroom. And we've also done sort of home learning workshops to get them to help to find their way around. But the main thing that sort of prompted that and galvanised that was that real desire from both parents and teachers, to be honest, that there was a way to interact more closely when children were working from home. And the communication side of things within Google Classroom is much, much stronger, even than having an email address available to them, because it's more immediate.